God help me, I'm awake. God help me, I'm awake.
There's no way you're not looking if you're listening to this podcast. Looking for something, for some song, some spark. By chance, you found us, so why not allow chance to guide and illuminate your path? Roll the dice that come along with your copy of God Help Me I'm Awake, Volume 1, Wisdom Quotes for Daily Awakening. To laugh and be inspired, go to godhelpmeimawake.com. Again, that is godhelpmeimawake.com, godhelpmeimawake.com.
Welcome to God Help Me Radio. Banned in Florida. Banned in Florida. Florida. I don't know. Which one is it?
Florida.
Do you have a take on which one it actually is? The truth of Florida?
No clue.
Okay. Well, Juju's barking in the back. I think he's trying to get Fable's attention.
Oh, I hear him.
You hear him? See?
Yeah.
Apparently, if you're on ayahuasca and you hear a dog barking, you lose your mind.
Tell me about that.
That's just what I've heard. So if anyone's on ayahuasca and they happen to be listening to this, I'm sorry.
Wait. Sorry, not sorry.
Sorry, not sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Some people never lose their minds. What truly horrible lives they must live. Charles Bukowski. See, that was a cell phone ding affirmation. Kevin, you don't need to do sound effects. Lauren's got us covered.
I got you. I was just saying, gotta shut up all the notifications.
Gotta shut up those notifies.
Shut them up.
Well, here we are. Too much coffee, not enough.
Just right. I'm feeling
just
right. Yeah. Today.
Good.
Little bit
I'm in that. Yeah. Sorry. Go.
No. I was just about to proceed to tell you about all the things I put in my coffee, which is not really necessary, but something that I feel very called to share. Little maple syrup, a little bit, and cardamom, cinnamon, some walnut milk.
But walnut milk, does it make it creamy enough?
No.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's a little watery.
This is like
watery beige.
I mean, this is an ongoing thing because my husband won't drink coffee if it doesn't have like milk or cream. I want to say like 99% cream. So he literally will not drink coffee if he runs out of milk.
Well, I drink goat's milk coffee. I mean, goat's milk in my coffee. And apparently if you're O blood type, which I am, you're more susceptible to acid for your stomach. So you want to coat it with some cream. So shout out to Daniel. He's a wise man.
I got type O. That's pretty funny.
I'm in my freezing hands, but somehow they're a little sweaty at the same time. So just analyze that wherever that is. That's where I'm at.
Same. I'm a little pit sweaty. That's kind of where I'm at right now.
I like that.
And that's how I know the conversation's going to warm up and get good, because we're just starting this thing and it feels like this, like we've been in this womb space and now like it's birthing into the world. You're talking to people, you're giving them sweaty dice at the gym.
This morning I sold a book with sweaty dice. That's another one of my rap names, Sweaty Dice. Watery beige.
Sweaty dice D. Wait, I don't want to be watery beige.
I'll be watery beige. I don't mind.
What would be I want to know what my rap name is.
Oh man. I'm not allowed to name people.
Why?
Because I don't have a sword to dub you. To lay a sword gently on your shoulder. I also get uncomfortable when people kneel in front of me. So I can't name you. Sorry. Maybe.
I almost spit out my water, but thank you.
Maybe baby.
Okay.
That's your rap name. Maybe baby.
Maybe baby. I am on the cusp of Libra and Virgo, and not that I follow any astrology or anything like that, but that hits me like
Maybe baby.
baby. Mhm.
Yeah, that's your rap name.
Yeah.
Lil Maybe Baby. Yeah, apparently isn't astrology off anyway? Like the calendar
Yeah.
is off at this
Yeah.
point. Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
So there's that. Well, today's inaugural show is titled Sheep Knuckles Thanks Goats, which is a long story, which I'll try to make short, but we have created a dice system. Growing up in New York, we used to play CeeLo, which is, as you discovered, Lauren, maybe baby, was brought to America by Chinese immigrants. So the game CeeLo, aka 456, was of Chinese origin. And when I was invited by a friend to write a book of poetry, like once and for all, since I've been writing poetry for 3 decades, they suggested maybe I do something based off the tarot or, every day of the year. And for me, that just didn't resonate, but I liked the concept of having some concept. So I meditated on that and the dice came to me. And then I went down the rabbit hole of trying to figure out how that would work. And I figured out that the potential outcomes of rolling 3 dice is 216. And so we made this book. Oh, well, actually, I wrote a book of poetry, which is being published currently by Paper Street. Shout out to Paper Street and EPAC. Amazing, beautiful, artistically savage, graceful humans. In the meantime, we created our Dice Oracle dice game of 216 quotes. God help me, I'm awake. And why not? Let me deviate, go on a tangent. I'm going to roll the dice for us. See what comes through. So we got 163. Now I flip my pages. 163. Perfect. Roomy. Forget safety. Live where you fear to live. Destroy your reputation. Be notorious.
Oh man. So I just put out an email with that exact quote.
No, you didn't.
On it that was it's scheduled for tomorrow.
That's crazy.
And something I don't think we've discussed. I'm not great at math. And
Same.
just realized 108 times 2.
Yep, exactly.
Just going back to my roots long ago in another life, malas being 108 beads.
Interesting.
Very, very symbolic number as well.
Yeah.
And everything in those denominations. So just it's out there.
Yeah.
It's out there. Yeah.
There's the train. You hear the train?
Kevin has no work. He's got no work to do.
We got it. So 108, I believe, would be 333 in the dice book, because half of 666, right?
Ooh.
And the 333 quote is my favorite. It's by my son, Rock. Dogs must be on leashes if they want to escape. So back to my sheep knuckles. A couple days ago, P.D. Newman, a.k.a. Philip, a.k.a. Danny, a.k.a. TV in the Day, brother of mine, informs me, one-of-a-kind mind he has, that in ancient times, perhaps Homeric, post-Homer, something or other, traditions, they would roll 3 sheep knuckles, which are 6-sided, and they had collected 216 quotes of Homer's, specifically of deities speaking in his work. So that blew my mind, because here I am, having stumbled upon this dice concept only to find that I'm going to get sued by a toga ghost. No, that I've inherited an ancient tradition. How special is that? The archetypal collective unconscious. So for fun, because he sent me the breakdown, I'm going to roll. Never done this yet. And see what we get in this. So 642 would be, do not fear and let no thought of death be upon you. So it's crazy that we inherited that. And then also in the same breath, PD told me that coffee beans were discovered in Ethiopia after a herder watched his goats eating these little cherries and going fucking nuts. He tried to eat them but found them too astringent to stomach. So he took them to the local Ethiopian Orthodox monastery, where learning was the most concentrated, and asked them to help make sense of them. They finally figured out that if they extracted the pith and roasted it, making tea from the remains, they experienced a great exhilaration, just like the goats. So, thanks, goats. Meanwhile, I'm rereading Haruki's body of work, Haruki Murakami, and I'm currently reading A Wild Sheep Chase, which is one of the trippy. I mean, all his work is dreamlike and incredible, to say the least, very surreal. And so I'm noticing, and then walking Juju this morning, I saw that, really messed up, chewed up sheep dog toy in the street. So I'm seeing all of these sheep flows. And to try to summarize A Wild Sheep Chase, Haruki's book, I Googled it, which is lame. Cue lame sound effect, maybe boos. Bunch of ghosts booing, Kevin. But what the summary said is, in essence, it's a dreamlike existential detective story about a man lost in modern life who is forced to chase a symbol of the unknown, confronting his own emptiness and the unsettling mysteries of the world around him. So, sheep. Also, I almost forgot, we got to shout out our AA sponsors of this episode. Tired of being stuck in spiritual traffic? Why wait? Purchase our new soul diet, Enlighten That Ass, a cosmic, cosmological colonic to purify, deify, and revivify your connection to the hell yeah. Basically, it's an HOV pass for the spinal highway to the queendom of heaven, which, contrary to popular belief, ain't in your noggin, it's in your ass. Anyone familiar with the Carl Jung God dropping a giant turd from his golden throne onto the cathedral, shattering the roof? No? Google that shit. Get it? Always a good balance to bring in some feces roots when talking about holy flows. Shout out to Enlighten That Ass. Really grateful to you guys for believing in us. We have a special guest coming on shortly here, Danny Goler, who has figured out something to do with lasers and matrix codes of sorts, and we'll let him describe this situation. But yeah, Lauren, what did I jot down? Lauren might ironically talk to us about wordlessness. Emily Dickinson and her darkness, her experience of being in darkness. And Lauren wants to know, when you say the thing, does it become more or less valuable?
That's it. No words. Thanks,
No
Zach.
words. Yeah. Zach stole all our great ideas. Oscar Wilde, the ancient, stole all our great ideas. I love that quote. Let's roll the dice again. Why not?
Yeah.
While we wait. 332. Wow, that's right before 333.
Mm.
It's a sign. It's a symbol. It's a sign. It's a symbol. 332. Those who do not move do not notice the chains. Rosa Luxemburg.
Mm.
I love that one. Cue chain rattling. Not train, Kevin, chain. Don't mess those up, bro. Make us look stupid. Ping pong sound effects. What other good sound effects would there be? Goldfish singing underwater.
Mm. Yeah, that was the first that came to mind.
The inner monologue of a masochist plotting their next dance. The whisperings of a rock. The uncomfortable squeaking of the absent-minded professor in their chair when their cerebral skills abandon them in the spotlight.
Let's talk. Let's talk about the wordlessness.
Please, take it away.
No, I kind of want to hear from the both of us in terms of the exploration, right, that we do with words, trying to grasp both depth and also, particularly in this God help me I'm awake world, the whimsy, the joy, for those who may know or not know me. I'm actually extremely intense and find myself in the area of not wanting to talk about things or not wanting to write things or not wanting to plug into whatever this kind of steady stream of stuff that comes at us, every day, and loving these dice, loving just kind of playing with this and then watching how the poetry just immediately reflects. It's just an understanding, and it doesn't need to make logical sense, but there's that place between the words that I've just been thinking about and playing with and realizing, as even I'm just going through my day with the practice of, we'll say, writing more, but it's not even writing more. It's even just like I'm making a poem or something in my head that, going back to our discussion of like Emily Dickinson, where she loves to go around the circumference. There isn't a circle. There isn't like, let me just say the thing on the right on the nail on the head sort of situation. It's this dancing around the circumference, and it's kind of sexy and it's kind of silly, and it's all of these things, and there's no real question in that, but I feel like maybe that'll spark something for you, because I feel like there's some underneath that, so much to ironically talk about.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I love the dancing around and the love of the circumference without defining the center. Because it's like archetypes, which I'm studying in school right now. You can't describe the archetype. You can only kind of talk about its effect on the person or the world. And so that's not the archetype in its raw per se form. It also reminds me of Michael Meade reminding me that in logical, rational, scientific, empirical kind of modern life, scientists are looking for the center of the universe. And when they can't find it, they assume that we're living in an accidental universe and that we are accidental beings, which pulls the rug out from meaning, and then everything is just nonsense. But the center, that old idea that wherever you are is the center. And God is like this mathematical equation that has no circumference, but whose center is everywhere. So it's kind of this both, the dance of that. And then I also think of the quote I sent you that P.D. Newman rolled the other day, one of my favorites by Rumi. When Rumi was asked why he writes so much about silence, he said, "The radiant one in me has never said a word." So to me, we're here on this radio show reporting live to all of our friends out there stuck in spiritual traffic, which we all are. And it's just an opportunity to enjoy the ride, or like we know we're all headed to the place. We came from the place, we're headed to the place. So the chatterings can just become musical, awesome games that we're playing as we're in the car, like games you play on road trips. You ever play Ghost?
Mm-mm.
You want to play Ghost real quick? So the
Sure.
object is, I'll start with a letter. It has to go past 3 in order to win or lose. But the object is to not spell a word, like not to be the one finishing with the spelling of a word, but you have to keep a word going. So if I say G and you say X, I would say I challenge you. And if you can't think of a word that starts GX, you lost.
Oh.
What are you guys?
What's
Well,
up, brother?
hello.
Danny
How you
Goler's
doing?
in the place. And he's echoing. We're echoing back. Earlier, I was just talking to my professor at school who's teaching us about archetypes at Pacifica. And when thinking about archetypes, as I begin to think about archetypes, it reminds me of the famous New Orleans chants where they say, "Who dat?" Who say, "Who dat?" when I say, "Who dat?" So we were about to play a game. And Danny, I don't know if you've ever played this game, but have you ever played Ghost? It's a word game.
Remind me.
So basically, the object of the game is to not be the one who finishes spelling a word. But you have to, like, I'll start with a letter and then it'll go, because now we're circular and I'm seeing you on the left and Lauren on the right. So it'll go you, Danny, then Lauren. And so we're going to be spelling a word, whatever word you want, but it has to be a real word. You can't say ZG, because then I'd say I challenge you. And if you can't think of a word that starts ZG, you lose. So you're trying to pass the baton of a word that you're thinking of without landing on it. So I'll start with B.
Okay. And
To you, Danny.
my job is to say a word that begins with B?
Now you just do another letter and try to carry on a word, a B word that goes without letting it end on you. So
Got
you
it.
could say,
Got
yeah,
it. Now I understand. Okay.
a vowel,
Okay, so
R,
E,
whatever.
So E.
Great. Lauren,
S.
BES. Ooh, that's a tough one. BES. Bez. Oh, man. You.
Does it have to
It's
be
obviously T. If I
does it
say
have to
T,
be-
I lose.
Yeah, you lose. Does it have to be English?
That's a good. I mean.
Oh, shit. Oh, come on now.
We can be like besame, besame.
I'm thinking, how do you spell bechamel? And is bechamel a word? What is bechamel? Okay, hold on. Give me a second here.
But
Kevin, you
wait,
can
okay. So what if, but like, I have a word that there's.
If you
like,
spell a
there's
word on the
more-
way to a word, you lose. You can't.
So there's like no word you can't.
BES.
Okay, sorry, Zach.
Well, wait.
What happens when you lose?
Well, you become a third of a ghost. And we were just talking before you came on how Lauren was talking about wordlessness. And the idea that Lauren mentioned earlier is when you say the thing, does it become more or less valuable? And so Emily Dickinson had a fascination apparently with the circumference, but not the center, not nailing down the center, because the moment you say it, you can't say it. You can only dance around it, so to speak. So we were saying, what's the purpose, or I brought in, what's the purpose of talking? Or Rumi's idea of the radiant one in him has never said a word. So to me, talking is like we're all stuck in spiritual traffic. That's what this show is. This is a radio show for everyone out there stuck in spiritual traffic. We're all headed there. We're going to get there. There's a lot of accidents, so it's going to take some time. What are we going to do with our time? We're going to play car games, Ghost. So BES. I'm going to lose on this one. I'll just say T and I lost because I don't want to.
That's a hard one. I couldn't think of anything. Could
Can
you
I-
think of anything, Lauren?
Yeah, I was like, how do you spell bechamel sauce?
That's what, yeah, exactly. I
didn't
think
even
it's,
know that's a word.
so then I would have said, I know, I think, you know what I should have said is C, And then you probably would have challenged me, and then I would have said bechamel, which I believe, Kevin, Google it when you do this and then insert the word. But bechamel, I believe, is Beschamel.
That's how, yeah.
So I won and I lost. So anyway, welcome to the show, Danny Goler,
Thank you.
my brother. I've been on your show. It's been a while. How are you?
I'm doing amazing. Thank you for having me, brother. And pleasure to be here with both of you.
Absolutely. Danny,
Same.
Lauren, Danny. So this is the inaugural episode of God Help Me, I'm Awake, which began as a coffee club during COVID that Lauren and I started to gather people who feel like they might not fit in the regular spaces, you know, and it was kind of a salon in the ancient traditions of just ideas and sharing and connecting. It quickly turned into a coffee company, and our organic poetry inspired coffee is coming soon. In the meantime, I had written a book of poetry with 3 dice being the formula. When you roll 3 dice, there's 216 potential outcomes. So there's 216 poems in the book I wrote. You roll them, it brings you to the poem. In the meantime, we made this book, which is in the mail to you right now, Danny. God Help Me, I'm Awake. Smoke Signals for Lucid Dreamers. And it's 216 quotes I curated with an 81-year-old woman named Ruth Strasberg. So I'm going to roll the dice now that you've arrived and see what wants to come through. And we got 661. So let's see who's here with us. Which ghost? 2/3 of a ghost. We got Bukowski. Crazy, because I said this in the beginning of the episode, if you recall, Lauren. Some people never go crazy. What truly horrible lives they must live. And Danny said in a post of a piece of art someone had made for him, take your madness seriously, my friends.
It's very fitting.
So can you speak a little bit about what that means to you, take your madness seriously?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of ways to explore what it's like to be us. And all of them are acceptable. But some people live in the shallow waters and some people are free divers. And everybody wants to contribute something to the village. This is an old idea that Terence McKenna had, and I'm sure he also probably patched it together from some other brilliant thinkers from back in the day. And Terence was talking about it in terms of fishing. He says that our job as the fishermen that go into the ocean is to try and get not the smallest idea that is trivial and boring, but also not the leviathans that will drag you into the abyss, but the medium-sized fish that you can bring back to the village for others to feast on. And these ideas are the ones that we're always looking for. And I think that being a fisherman of that kind entails a certain amount of practice, skill. So it's when we're talking about exploring the mind, either through psychedelics or other altered states, you can just kind of dive into infinity and just throw yourself up for whatever current wants to take you, and that's also legitimate, by the way. But if we are playing the game of trying to contribute something to the greater good of all, maybe if you are the kind of individual who tends to do that already, why not also focus on taking that expedition a little bit more seriously? And when you get into these very deep waters, is there something there that still speaks of what we are here? And I think yes. And I think you're actually a perfect example of this, because you have this style of communication that it's funny enough, it's not negotiable. So it's almost like whatever other style meets you for my interaction with you, you still exactly how you are, even though in the beginning people can be like, wait, it's like I'm speaking to a riddle, right? And that's a really beautiful thing, because it makes people lean in and think about what is actually happening versus just having the most, these tiny fish all the time swimming between the fingers, which is like, oh, how you doing? Good. The weather, it's great, isn't it? Yeah. And you just move on. There's never a connection because there's never a leaning in, because you never had to do any work of connecting with what was actually expressed right now. And as someone who came from a very kind of scientifically minded perspective, when I started discovering more and more of these, what on the surface might seem pretty insane ideas, I realized that there must be a bridge. There must be a way to connect between the totally crazy and the things that are, because the most brilliant ideas only come from the totally crazy, but then how do you make them into something that is here, that we can all kind of partake in? So that phrase signifies for me this art of learning better and better. How do you transmute the absolutely batshit bananas out there, to something that we can actually partake in all together and feel in harmony with?
Is it guano batshit? I want to say guapo guano, handsome batshit. That's my other new rap name. Handsome batshit. So Emerson, I'm writing a book right now called Becoming Emerson. And it started as a spark in a song with my brother Kevin, who's doing woodcut art for the book. The idea that our attention spans are less than a goldfish. You probably have heard this passed around these days as an insult to, as the train honks. I got distracted by a train. No. So it's an insult to our modernity, etc. So that was the initial spark. And then I started thinking about this goldfish who's told me his name is Emerson. And he's in his bowl, and he's a tiny fish. That's why I'm mentioning him. Shout out to McKenna.
Shout out to
who
the
apparently said
spider
the,
in the crates that we dug in.
the first drug bust was our falling out of Eden or something like that.
Yeah, something to that effect, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, the goldfish is in this bowl, and he's talking about an old joke about him where every time the goldfish swims in a circle, he says, wow, a castle, wow, a castle, wow, a castle. And it's meant as like, again, kind of mocking the goldfish. The goldfish says, it's true that I would say that in my story. This is what he says in the story. He says, but it's not because I forgot there was a castle there. It's because each time I was astounded by the architectural beauty of the castle, and I noticed something different each time. He said, they've taken away the castle and replaced it with a phone. I don't say wow as much these days. So that's how the story starts. And so Emerson becomes this kind of Zen portrayal of someone who's in the moment. And Emerson goes on this journey. He gets flushed down the toilet. Spoiler alert. And he goes to the underworld. He dies. He goes and meets this cosmic being in the ocean. Eventually he becomes a whale, but he chooses to come backwards through the same journey he went back into the bowl consciously. So it'll end where he's back in the bowl, but he's had this journey. So speaking about fish, and Emerson, Ralph Waldo Emerson, said something that is also coming up based off your high compliment. Thank you for the riddle. The riddle that I am, I guess, is, let's see if I can find it right here. One moment here. It's basically, all is a riddle, and the key to a riddle is another riddle. God help me, I'm a guapo guano. So I wanted to say this fairy tale as we enter into some inquiries I have, and I'd love for you to, because it's been a while since we checked in, talk about your work, which I know the catchy part of your work, which is amazing that it's going, is partially about the experiment that you were so excited to tell me about on our first episode, which now seems to be rippling into the world in a profound way. So I'd love to hear about that and maybe explain to Lauren, as well as whatever else you want to talk about around your explorations in the ocean. God Help Me, I'm Awake began with those meetings, and I would write a fairy tale for each one. So the very first one has to do with going into the darkness, where our rooster protagonist has this encounter. And I thought it fitting because the lasers and the darkness and the journey. So this is called Galu and the Moon. Dear friend, after today I will be gone for a while. Where are you going? Galu asked. Away, said Sun. It's time for the world to learn how to see with their other eyes. Plus, I am long overdue for a vacation. Galu shifted nervously from one leg to the other, unsure of what to say. And Galu, before I go, I have a job for you. Yes, said Galu, perking up. I want you to learn to call up the moon, so she will shine her silver light while I am gone. As Sun turned to leave, Galu called after him. How will moon shine without you? Sun turned and smiled. I don't know. Ask her. Galu nodded. Sun set, and the darkness began. So, speaking of other eyes, you, Danny, have learned to see differently than most, I would say. Jazz cats chasing lasers. I always love the image of cats chasing the little laser tag thing, laser pointer. DMT, laser tag, matrix grids. What? Please explain, if you don't mind, if that all alley-oops you into some of your work and seeing this code in certain conditions that, in my limited understanding, pardon me if I'm misrepresenting, has something to do with Kabbalah, lasers, maybe DMT occasionally being a way to get there. What's going on?
So first of all, thank you so much for sharing all of that beautiful poetry. It always gets my creative juices going, and considering that I'm working on a written piece right now, this is very much fitting because it makes me think in more creative ways thanks to your way of expressing things.
Thank you.
You're actually very right that the work that I do seems to be very memeable, and I don't think it's a coincidence. I think that's how it's chosen to be for a reason. But I'm kind of known to be the laser DMT guy, which is the meme, right? At this point, it's kind of like out there. And I essentially discovered that if you project a diffracted laser on a surface of any kind and you happen to be on DMT, you will see what at least seems to be some kind of a self-executing code. And it does not appear as a hallucination. It looks more like some kind of a hyper object that is just kind of there in the surface. It seems to be always the same under all conditions we tested it so far. All individuals, all times, all conditions, all moods, all temperatures. Try to introduce powerful magnetic fields to it. It seems to just be doing its own thing, which seems very complex, but it's just keep operating. And when I found this, it was the result of a very long search that I personally had, in which I asked myself, is there a way to talk about psychedelic realms as real in such a way that we could potentially do something with it? So, there's this very old and open question whether what we experience in these mindscapes is real. In other words, existing even when we're not looking, kind of like it is its own thing and has its own life, regardless to us being there. Or is it just purely what we call mind-made or hallucinations or things like this? And of course, there's a lot of gray area that I'm sure you would be very happy to get into, because it has to do with what is the role of the human mind and how it operates and how it gives life to certain things, without which these things don't have that life. All of that on the table. And now the question is, but what is it really? Or at least that was my question, right? And I realized in my journey that this is not everybody's question. some people don't operate under the impression that this question is important. For them, leaving it at poetry or a metaphor or a way to perceive the world, to each his own, so to speak, that's where they are very happy. And I learned to respect that. My way of coming at it was more under the banner that even though I know that my own personal perception has an imprint that probably also translates to something real, nevertheless, if I want to respect the thing, so to speak, I have to admit that it itself also has a life of its own. Otherwise, it's pretty selfish to assume, at least that's my perception, that it's just like what I think it is, right? So if you want to use a slightly more flavorful language, I asked it. I said, well, what are you really? And as you're no stranger to, this thing, whatever it really is very, it has a lot of sense of humor, and there's a huge trickster element there. And it's just, it then, the second you place your attention on it, it starts playing the game. It goes, oh, you would like to know? And so it begins, right? It's like, okay, let's play. And but I insisted on my way, and when the answers that were coming from the other side were not very forthcoming, but more kind of like these fun yet clear goose chases, I said, okay, I'll find out by myself. And I don't know if it had any negative reaction to that, but I was like, I'll come visit, but I need to gather my own information, I guess. And so I did. And so I started walking a different path in which I started asking the question a little bit more scientifically. In other words, okay, if the space is real, what must be true? And one of the things that became apparent immediately was, well, we see it with our eyes. So I know whatever light is, ultimately, light is involved. I can see it. My eyes pick up light, right? And the other thing that must be true is that if it has autonomy of any kind, it has some rules by which it's operating. It might be way more complex rules. It might be multidimensional, whatever it is. But if it's not just a crazy soup of nonsense, then it has some rules by which it's operating by. And then I started thinking about geometry, topology, things that are kind of like pretty boring to a lot of people. And I said, okay, well, is it possible to find a place where if we all look in that direction, so to speak, we will see the same thing versus kind of similar or comparing notes? Or like, can we find a place where it's exactly the same? It's like a boundary where it's the same for all of us. And the full story is very long, and that's why we're shooting. Well, we're kind of done shooting, so the documentary, The Discovery, is going to be coming out hopefully by March or April. The full story is going to be in the documentary, but the short version was, the second I started asking questions of a certain kind, hints started appearing for me, and I'm not gonna. I tried it many times. I think that the details are actually not as interesting as they can be unless you're there and like experiencing it in real time. But they were, the kind that you would expect, kind of like synchronicities, and you would see numbers and things like this. But they would point to very specific things. And I followed it. I didn't really tell anyone. There was one time I told a friend of mine when this just started, and he kind of gave me a look that I never wanted to receive again. He kind of looked at me like I'm kind of nuts. And he didn't say anything, and that was like even more painful. But then I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm not really sharing this anymore until I maybe come up with something. And years down the line, I figured something out, which is that if you do this thing with the laser, and there are technical reasons behind it, it's not like it's just kind of like like a lucky guess. It basically it seems to be stabilizing some kind of a tapestry on which everything else is projected. So the best way I can describe it, it's not even about, people always say code. So the code is the content. Like you can see these, what seems to be like tiny, tiny, tiny characters, way more complex than in the Matrix. Like it's just like it has all kinds of degrees of freedom that the Rain in the Matrix doesn't have. But what's interesting is that it's on something. There's like a structure there. And it almost feels like everything else that we see, both in the psychedelic space, and I'm becoming more and more convinced that maybe even what you're seeing now, like this, whatever the wall in front of you is, it might be projected, so to speak, on top of this structure. It is literally the grid, right? And we don't really, we have, I started a company called Code of Reality that is the official investigative arm. And we now slowly getting in more and more scientists on board. But currently, as far as we know, which is not a lot, it doesn't seem to respond to anything, which is weird because I had, people that are a little bit more, let's call them good with energies, like people that are very talented in that regard. I'm sure you know quite a few of them. And they were very confident when they're coming into the experiment. They're like, I'll show you, check this out. And they're like, and they come out of it surprised. They're like, that's so weird. Like, I can't do anything with it. Like, it's just kind of doing its own thing. And I realized that there's a middle ground between the two more extreme perceptions of the world. One being that it's all physical, just kind of like a mechanical system, and then our consciousness is just like a little fluff on the surface. It's a pretty extreme position. Also completely unmerited if you actually like consider what we probably don't know, right? But then the other side of it, I feel like it's also a little extreme, which is, it's all just our own creation. Well, hold on a second. That's a little self-centered, right? I'm sure there's more things than just you. And even if we are ultimately all unified, your experience through this separation that you're experiencing now is also happening for a reason, right? So there has to be a middle ground where we get to play and be respectful of each other's kind of perceptions of the world, because I think that these perceptions of the world are just tools to come at certain things. You're not going to move people strongly, emotionally, if you're just going to describe to them what everything is made out of. That's what poetry is for. But you're not going to be able to build a rocket with poetry. It's never going to fly. So you have to kind of meet somewhere, right? And where I find myself, the way I define my place in this world is somewhere right there squarely in the middle, trying to play the role of a bridge. It's like, here's what they mean versus they're wrong. Like, they're not wrong. What they mean to say is, and then you translate it in a slightly different, more acceptable language for whatever is trying to understand the other side. And one thing I will share that not a lot of people, I don't even know if I share this. Maybe I have, I can't recall, but if I have, I definitely haven't shared it much. So really, really recently, people can go online and look up at, all the stuff that I do. So there's like thousands of hours of me talking about this online at this point. But one new thing that just recently we discovered is that it seems to be that there is one way, at least that I can discern, that the code, whatever it is, does respond to. But from a scientific perspective, it's a little wonky. Like it's because it's not a device that you turn on, but there's something on the software level, like something that you can do in your head. It's a particular gesture. It's very unique, and it's almost like a rotation you do in a direction that you're not familiar with. It's almost like it's trying to teach you to see things in 4D. So if you lock your eyes on one of the portions of the code, and then you, so to speak, rotate the space around the place you're looking, you kind of go this weird motion, the code responds. It does something else. And the first thing it happened for me, it was literally like in the movies. It was, have you seen the movie Contact?
Jodie Foster?
Yes.
Yeah.
So you remember when they figured it out and it just became schematic all of a sudden? Kind of like that. Like it all of a sudden it changed into something else. And then I was like, whoa. Because I've never seen that before, and I've done it hundreds of times. and then somebody else could replicate this. So like I told somebody, and they're like, "Yep, I see it. Like you could do it." So that's the best I can share on, what I do, and kind of give you a little bit of a snippet there of something new.
Wow. First of all, I have spiritual vertigo. How about you, Lauren? How you feeling, Lauren?
Amazing. There's many questions.
Yeah. Well,
The fact, yeah.
yeah.
Go ahead.
No. Well, just before you, I'd love to hear your questions. Christopher M. Bosch. Have you ever read LSD in the Mind of the Universe by Christopher M. Bosch?
I have not.
That book changed my life. I highly recommend it. He's someone who is kind of like
What is it
who
called?
was it? The professor who was it McKenna, or who got in trouble or like kicked out of?
Oh, Timothy Leary.
Timothy Leary. So same time, Christopher M. Bosch, LSD in the Mind of the Universe, was a professor like Leary, but he decided to do his research undercover. So he maintained his job. And over the course of, I believe, 20 years, he did 72 high-dose LSD journeys, which were documented, and he traveled through realms. And it was a sequential experience over 20 years. So it'd be like he is in one realm, learns the rules of it, and then almost reaches the barrier, and kind of the identity he has assumed or become in that realm dies and is reborn into the next realm. So this continued all the way to what maybe Buddhists refer to as diamond consciousness. And he said it goes on forever. But anyway, Molly, my wife, put me onto that book. I read it and I had spiritual vertigo, like you just gave me, which is wonderful.
I'm honored.
So I'm tongue-tied, and before, Lauren, you ask questions, tomorrow, if it all lines up, my brother P.D. Newman, who's the wisest, smartest, trippiest mind, and you're also one of them, he was supposed to be here today, but he had Christmas obligations and time zone problems, clocks, farmers, I don't know, whatever. But long story short, I'm going to save it for tomorrow, but he's studied, I believe, the Kabbalah for 20 years and said that he's a big student of your work and believes you mentioned in somewhere about Kabbalic symbols potentially appearing in some of this code, but he has not heard you speak about it at length or be asked about it. So I know he has some questions. Is that true?
So when you're saying Kabbalic symbols, you mean Hebrew? You mean
Yeah.
So
Don't go deep into it now because I want to save that for tomorrow's episode.
Sure.
But is that a true?
Well, it seems that there is characters that appear there that seem to be Hebrew.
Cool.
But then again, some people report it as Sanskrit. Some people report it. I originally saw it as Japanese.
Wow.
But I don't think it's any of these symbols. I think it's a language that we're simply not familiar with. I don't even know if
It's
it is
reminiscent.
What is also possible is that whatever it is, it can kind of, are you familiar with the Babelfish? The Babelfish from...
but like Tower of Babel?
Kind of. Well, Babelfish is like a character in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Okay.
And it's basically
I still have that book that you told me to read. I've seen... Yeah, okay, continue. Babelfish.
You put it in your ear, and now we have this, right? You can do this with Apple headphones probably, and it just, when somebody speaks to you, it just automatically translate. Exactly, yeah. So it's possible that what it does, it kind of solidifies what you expect to see to the closest thing that makes sense to you.
Interesting.
But it's clear that there's something of real substance. That it's the substance element that makes it feel unique. And the way the code appears is just very specific. But yeah, it's like a mixture of Japanese, Hebrew.
Dope.
I had a guy, I don't know if he wants to be named, super nice guy, a very devout Muslim. And when he came to see the code, he said, "Oh my God, I see the Quran. I see," like he was like, "I see and then he said, "Oh, but there's also symbols I don't know." I was like, "Okay,
perfect."
So yeah,
wet cement tombstones. Well, I was going to make a joke about how Jewish people are right. They won the game, and that Israel is real. Is it real? Israel. Anyway, I was going to go off.
Israel. I never thought about that. Israel. No, it's
but
not
I'm
a question.
Jokester.
It's, well, if anything, then it says is real.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not a question.
Exactly.
It's the one place that's real. Yeah.
So I love that. And one more thing before, Lauren, I'd love to hear your questions, is we've been talking a lot about fish, and I think that's fascinating, and the symbology of fish, whether it's Christ or the idea that fish don't talk about water. I don't know if you've ever heard that phrase. Fish don't talk about water. So asking if there is
Wallace.
a God is like a fish asking if there is water. And there's a story about a fish under a dock who keeps hearing these voices, which he doesn't know are humans saying sounds. And one of the recurring sounds is water, water, water. And he decides his mission, like Danny Goler's journey and question, is to discover what water is. So he goes off on a journey. All his friends mostly are dead. One day he comes back, and a few of his friends are still living. They say, "Oh, is that you, Moses, or Emerson, or Danny, or Lauren?" It is. And so they gather the fish tribe in a semicircle, and he's there with his little cane. He's limp swimming. And they say, "So what was that sound? What?" And he says, "Water." And they said, "Well, did you figure out what it is?" And he said, "I did." And then silence. And they say, "Well, please tell us." And he says, "You wouldn't believe me if I told you." And he swims away. So I always love that story. And also the fact that clownfish, which you might be familiar with, are all born male. And when the alpha male dies, they transform into a female and become the queen. So there's only one queen, and it's called sequential hermaphroditism, which I think is a wonderful analogy for Carl Jung's idea of individuation. Lauren, take it away. Sound effects, Kevin, fireworks and crickets and car crashes. What's up, Lauren?
Wow. That was a great lead in there. There's a question underneath a question underneath a question. I know you get it. The first one that really struck me when you started to speak at the very beginning, almost as if it didn't want to be known, bringing up the trickster, like how you're explaining that. Can you speak more to that? I'm really curious if I heard that correctly, number one, but there was an element of it. I'm always looking at things through the lens of almost like initiation, even if you're talking about these symbols, right? That could it possibly be an experience that is tailored to, we'll say, the individual consciousness, or how much we can actually absorb. When I think about lasers, I also think about cats and dogs and how it really fucks them up, right? And so there's a level of like being able to perceive and hold and understand and ingest this kind of level of, I don't know, I'll use the word consciousness. I don't even like that word, but that level, there's a degree of that, right? Of being able to actually ingest and digest that. And that takes me to the thought of madness, right? When we are unable sometimes to handle that kind of experience in a way. And so I love the work that you're doing in this bridge area of bringing it into these spaces where people can digest it, can see it, can explore it. But I'd love to go back to what do you think that is around it? It almost being, it sounded cheeky to me,
And how come your hair didn't turn white? Like, was it Moses who, when he asked to see God and God just passed over, he said, "Go between these rocks, I'll pass over just like a teeny part of me." And Moses, or one of those guys, saw like a fractal part of God overhead, and his hair turned white, and he went in the desert and babbled for 40 years. So why is your hair not white? Do you bleach it? Do you dye it?
Every single day.
It's a wig.
Hey, dude, my hair's white,
people want to know.
I was actually, you know what's funny? I was born with gray hair.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was born, well, first of all, I was born completely blonde, like Dennis the Menace blonde, like fully blonde.
Wow.
And then it changed to darker colors. But the little streaks that I have now, I've always had here and there. I always had gray
That's
hair.
so
So I guess I
cool.
was born with some.
You were born an elder. I'm getting
yeah.
grays. I love the grays. I'm all
I love
about
the
it.
grays.
But trickstery deflections of that initial experience.
as you can probably imagine, it is very difficult to answer questions in this realm because any thread you pull points to the infinite. And then what do you even say, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if I understand your question correctly, let me first answer in directly. I like when people answer my question first and then they do their walkabouts. So directly to your question, I don't think it is God. I think that it might be a God, but it is not the God, which is real, by the way. So there's the component of the trickster seems to be an archetype that carries a very important function in reality. As the best of my ability to discern so far, and this is from a very vast experience repertoire, to reading books, to listening to wise people who know what they're talking about, to speaking to a couple of shamans about it. From what I understand so far, in order for anything to count or to matter, somebody somewhere has to experience it. In order to experience it, you have to be part of duality, part of separation, because the all is just the all. It has no. It's almost like that is the one rock that God cannot lift, because God cannot not be all, right? So God fragments itself into all of these infinite pieces, and they have a hierarchy of both functions and responsibilities in terms of how much they can absorb all at once and then instantiate as their experience. Any point of pain, any moment of love, any possible emotion that is experienced is adding a value to the greater good of all, because then through that, it's the channel through which God gets to experience all of that. So from what I understand, the jesters, they seem to be one of the most, if not the most, powerful beings in existence, aside from the God Almighty, right? And that's because they were imparted with the ability and therefore the responsibility to experience the yin and the yang all at once. They can actually experience it all at once. They can be like a superposition of both, right? This is why very often when people encounter them in different ways, people sometimes say, well, I didn't understand. Was he like trying to hurt me, or was he menacing, or was he? And the truth is, he doesn't know. He's all of it. And there's this kind of look of like, like, let's find out. It's not like
Eshu. I love Eshu. If you know
Eshu?
the African, Eshu, and the colorful hat. The
Oh, is that
African
the one that you were
trickster where he
wearing
has four-sided. I don't know. Was I?
Was
What was
that
I
the
wearing?
necklace you were wearing on my podcast?
Oh, that was a Mudhead, which is
Mudhead,
also
okay.
a trickster. But Eshu, there's a story about this African god who wears it's a four-sided hat with four different colors, and he walks through the field, and the two farmers start arguing. His hat's red, no, his hat's green, and they come to blows, and they're about to kill each other. And then he appears and says, no, it's both. So anyway, that's one tale of what you're describing.
It's exactly that, yeah. And basically, the reason for this quote unquote attitude is because that's what they do. That's literally their job. And they are there to be the surprise mechanism to nature. They're such a wild card that even the totality doesn't get to know what they do next.
Mm-hmm.
Which prevents atrophy.
Yeah.
Which
That was
prevents
my-
atrophy, right?
That was my question. What is
Yeah.
the, we'll say, purpose of
I would say it's to
that's
prevent
a
atrophy of the constant recreation.
Of the jokesters, you mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's
through
well,
your
I'm sure,
perception.
yeah,
of
through my
that.
perception, of course. Yeah, I think it's some. Well, there's a lot, right?
Sure.
I also see from a perspective of like just technically, I kind of built my own map of where these things kind of sit, and some of them just sounds arbitrarily weird and really not really connected to any like logic, but some of them kind of make sense. And one of the things I noticed is that they well, I just noticed. First of all, I noticed their power through others in their presence. So, like when the jokester, when the particular jester would appear that I would be in communication with, everybody else, so all the other beings present, they all just go. They just kind of go quiet. Like they're like, don't move. Like you don't mess with him, right? And also, it seems like he is not limited by any level. So they can jump. They're a whole species, but each one of them is its own species. And they can jump from any point in existence to any other point in existence instantly. They don't have any limitation in that regard. That's their gift. But also the responsibility of that is that because they can do that, they can literally occupy many, 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 many states at once, which is actually very hard to do. And they
can be torturous for them, perhaps.
Exactly. That's exactly, yeah.
Without the gravity.
All of it. Yeah.
Of
the
some
gravity
sort
of the situation, the reason that the sense of humor is always there and it feels a little dark and all of that is because they literally teetering on the line of insanity, like truly, like constantly. They're there. And they kind of have to ride it constantly.
Yeah.
Which
is like the caveman. So there's two things. One, I heard an acronym for God today through my dad, through our friend George, who passed away. And what's crazy is Danny, who you'll meet tomorrow on our new show, TV in the Day, which is kind of like the absinthe of our bar. And I'm sober, but the absinthe of our podcasts, which is a triptych now with this one and Pink Hearse. Anyway, on our first episode together, Danny mentions his teacher, Keir, and I say, George, and he's in Mississippi, and it's George, my dad's best friend who died, was Danny's teacher, and I've never met Danny in person. Really powerful. George, long story being, but through my dad today, he said, George used to say this acronym for God: generate, organize, destroy. Which is kind of a fascinating, again, many definitions, but that is kind of what God does to some extent. Generate, organize, destroy, right? Generate a Danny, organize a Danny, destroy a Danny. Not that you ever get destroyed, but that endless form and the trickster's kind of flow of that comes to mind in a really interesting way. And back to our podcast with you, and why I even reached out to you following signs, synchronicities, or symbols rather than signs. You reposted a clip from our original episode where I'm talking about my dad and I having a post-mushroom morning. And my dad suddenly is embodying this ancient caveman, cannibal kind of being, ancestor, who is both terrible and very light and playful and scary, but also very gentle. And I ask this caveman, for advice, and basically whacks me on the side of the head with my dad's hand and says, don't give your power away, boy. And then says, but if you want one piece of advice, I would say, if you don't know if you can trust a situation, look for laughter, genuine laughter, not nervous chuckling, not mean laughter, genuine, warm. We know the difference. And if there's real laughter there, you can probably trust it. So that delineation and distinction between the trickster's laughter, and another definition of trickster through Michael Meade is the trick with the trickster is to keep it close to healing. That's one of my favorite definitions of trickster, or tricks for the trickster to keep itself the hermaphrodite it is and beyond definition. When it becomes maniacal, when it becomes the Joker, when it becomes that, there's some sort of, which is meant to be, I guess, but there's some sort of tilting into a bitterness of ego, anger, I don't know, again, words, but as opposed to the gentler trickster who might whack you on the side of the head, but they've already kind of integrated their own role and they're not here to be malicious or get vengeance. That's something I've discovered.
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly.
So Lauren, back to you as we, I know we could go on endlessly, and I can't believe this is the first episode of our radio show, because what better way to talk about God help me, I'm awake. We're in Plato's cave, or maybe we're stepping out of it. And here we are with, studying Carl Jung in this depth psychology program at Pacifica. What I'm astounded by with whether it's Eric Neumann, Carl Jung, James Hillman, Gloria E. Anzaldúa, Susan K. Rowland. The list goes on of these great minds who've come before and are still with us. it is so cerebral, it is so dense, but it is rooted in a soul and a respect for the mystery that is the only reason I do fuck with it. And you have that in a remarkable way. Because even coming on, it was almost like you answered a question by acknowledging the type of person or the people who might be more comfortable to stay in a poetic realm, but you're bringing your work in this incredible way that is rooted in a respect and a love of the poetry, but also following your strong instinct for your mission. I guess one question I had is, how has this discovery, this ongoing discovery, has it enhanced your day-to-day, your role as a father, your joy, your, like, because whether it's Kai Dickens and the telepathy tapes, whether it's the Celestine prophecies, whether it's any of these eureka moments throughout time that point toward and penetrate the malaise of our logical, whatever you want to call it, side of our brains that keep forgetting and only believe it if it's hot, cold, physical. I love those moments where the consensus reality is kind of rippled and wobbled by these eurekas that are bigger than just one maniac babbling. And for me, what that does is it just affirms what I already know and softens the hardened fear of death, the fear of etc. So for you, how is that direct experience, and how does it continue to be medicine in that way?
Thank you for that question. It actually, funny enough, it's amazing how many beautiful threads are connecting here all at once. The answer to this question is basically the second half of my answer to what Lauren asked, which is that it's not so much that it's a secret or ever was. In fact, what I discovered that in reality, there are no secrets. It's just a matter of, do you understand? And that actually made me realize, after this very long dance with the other side, that any moment of recognition is also a moment of a new birth of a responsibility. It's almost like the second you can know it, you get to take ownership over whatever it is that you are now understanding, because you're presiding over that domain of
a steward.
A steward. It's a new map that opens for you, and you can see, and God, so to speak, can see, you can see. So now that God knows you can see, he goes, okay, well, now you can't say you didn't know anymore. You get to actually take ownership over it. And this is also why ultimate knowledge, it is the ultimate responsibility, right? And it's more like less than a secret, more like we're the creatures in the forest that simply didn't have the neck muscles to lift our heads. So we didn't know there's trees and life on trees and all of that. But the second you develop that gene and you can all of a sudden look up, you go, oh, what is all that? Right? So it's not like the secrets, it's not like the trees were a secret. It's just you couldn't look. You didn't know how. But now that you are, and this, I promise that this also answers your question, brother. I will type immediately. No, it's directly connected to that. I realized, did you know that we discovered that some monkeys now entering their Stone Age? Did you hear about this?
No.
It's fascinating. Wow. So they're starting like fishing with spears, and it's crazy. So now imagine that. So we're still sharing the exact same planet, right? And they entering now the stage that we entered maybe 4 million years ago, or like, right?
Shit.
So imagine what would happen if they would evolve a little bit more and we would still stay put. At a certain point, when their cognition would get robust enough and they can start thinking like more, we would recognize it, right? We'd be like, oh, okay, they started developing these other things. I think that the way more advanced species, we now carry a responsibility to allow them to evolve in peace. So like to the extent that we can, we should remove ourselves from their perception as much as possible, so they get to, because spaceships and things like this, and be like, like they would lose their minds. So because there's this intelligence has this quality that other forms of life doesn't usually have, which is the evolution ramps up. right? Because most of the evolution starts happening here. Then it creates these rifts between levels of evolution. It's no longer just in harmony. It goes, and then if you have the possibility, you have to cater to that if you can. And I think that what's going on is that we're obviously not alone. So when species become more evolved than us in some other ways that we don't understand, on some other planes that we don't yet understand, they take on the responsibility and make themselves least visible to us. But here's the reason I'm telling you all this. When it reaches a point where their hockey stick starts also going like this hyperbolic and they get smarter fast, which is what we're entering now for ourselves, they're not allowed to hamper your development either. That's not a legal move, right? So the only ethical way is to create a protocol to help you understand, to kind of cushion the ontological blow for you. It's like not only you're not alone, it's way crazier than you think, all that stuff, right? So then you slowly create processes by which they would gently understand, and it kind of helps them get on the train in their own speed, so to speak. And the reason it connects to the question you asked me, Zach, is because when I understood this, the imperative of getting my own act together to a certain level faster became very clear. Like, it's just like, oh, like I was already kind of on on a journey to better myself and all that stuff and doing meditation, all these things. But it became clear that it's like, oh, I don't have 20 years. Like, it's now. Like, we're doing this now. And it's like, okay, how do I do that? And a big portion of my transformation was that realization due to the fact that I understood what the structure actually entails. And then I started, kind of, and I think the way I found to do that is to, the more I spoke publicly, the more I saw what impact it causes for people. And then how do I make myself sharper, faster, more compassionate, more loving, more understanding of how it is to be on the receiving end of what I'm saying, so I can say it in a way that is more absorbable and in a way that doesn't just destabilize people. Because it's a trial and error, but in the beginning you just kind of say what you know, and then slowly you watch people going through the experience, going through what I'm saying. And it's only when I started getting certain kinds of emails that I said, oh, okay, now I found the direction. Like, people started emailing me
a cadence,
yeah,
and
well,
symbols.
it just became a lot less like, dude, I also know, or like these like very zany, like crazy emails to, I got this email more than once. It's like, I lost all hope for this life in this world, and I saw what you were doing, and I'm like, I want to stick around to see this. Things like this, and that like, it makes you tear up. And it's like, I had a guy email me from Argentina saying, I just finished my PhD in physics, and I was like, I have no idea why I did this. I was like, I've just wasted 8 years of my life, and I really don't want to do it. And he said, will you please send me a laser and sign it? Like, I understand now what I studied physics for. And I was like, wow. Like, there's like when I started getting these emails, I was like, okay, there's something there that is more than just me being the guy saying what I'm saying. It somehow connects to people's meaning trajectory and what life means to them. Like, okay, there's a message here that I'm very happy to sharpen, so it will have this effect on people.
So back to your primate apes entering their Stone Age, I heard that raccoons are opening nail salons.
They've had them for a long time. It was just always secret.
I got my nails painted there last week, and they do an excellent job. They provide beverages. They only talk to you if you feel like talking, and they know how to intuitively gauge your social bandwidth in the moment. They're amazing. They don't want tips.
I need that address.
Yeah. But the other, I don't know, man. There's so many. I'm going to roll the dice.
Sure.
Six, 1, 2. Did we roll 6, 1, 2? Oh,
no, it was 6, 6, 1.
Okay, good. There you see. That's his mind right there in action. 612, we got Ralph Waldo Emerson. The invariable mark of wisdom is to see the miraculous in the common. Which is what
Again,
you're doing.
with the fish.
Yeah, exactly.
Look deeper is definitely a big element.
Yeah.
Look deeper is definitely a big element. Yeah.
And you, to end where we begin and to know it for the first time, is the T.S. Eliot idea. So it's the same. You the prodigal son has to leave to return to see the miraculous in the common the whole time. What you said about responsibilities, I love that. It reminds me of William Butler Yeats saying, "In dreams begin responsibilities." So
I
it's
don't
a
know if I
similar
fully
echo.
understand that one. Would you?
I
would you
didn't fully, and I still don't necessarily fully understand, except I would apply your definition to it. In dreams, when you start to awaken to various knowledge, when your neck muscles start to develop and you see, you now have a responsibility for this new understanding of what you're being shown. So dreams are levels of waking to me. So in dreams begin responsibilities. That it basically, you defined it for me with what you were saying about God providing certain knowledge, and then that becomes a new responsibility for you.
I can see that.
Lauren, any final thoughts? Tomorrow we have another podcast. If you are able to join again, Danny, with Danny. So I don't want to, waste all the, anyway. Yeah. I feel like we have to end this somewhere. Otherwise we'll just be on here forever.
Yeah,
Lauren,
that's
do
what
you
I
have
was going
any
to say.
final? Yeah.
I will not ask another question.
Perfect. And you're glitching out, so that's a perfect sign of.
Perfect. I'm always
And the
glitching
last thing I wanted to just tell you, Danny, because you weren't here in the beginning part where I mentioned this, but sheep knuckles. Did I tell you about sheep knuckles?
Mm-mm.
So this game that I developed, or that it developed through me, was, like I said, a game in New York. We used to play CeeLo. I figured out the outcome of 3 dice is 216, etc. So now we have Dice Formula books, and it's a series. We're working on God Help Me, I'm a Parent. God Help Me, I'm Old. Gosh Help Me, I'm a Kid. God Help Me, I'm God. God Help Me, I'm a Gangster. Would love to actually write one with you someday.
That would be an honor.
Where Galu goes into the realm, you're exploring the rooster, and like 216 quotes from that realm, or whatever you would think, and we could call it God Help Me, whatever you want.
God help me, I know.
Yeah, God help me, I know. God help me, I get it. Yeah, I get the joke. I love that. But so the other day, P.D. Newman, who you'll meet tomorrow, told me that in post-Homeric times, they used to use 3 sheep knuckles, which are 6-sided, that they wrote symbols on, and they would throw them, and they had accumulated 216 Homer quotes of deities that they would roll. So how crazy is that I archetypally received, after my 30 years of traveling, this not original. Of course, the ancients stole all our great ideas, as Oscar Wilde said. But yeah, this episode is called Sheep Knuckles. Thanks, Goats, because of that realization through Danny that I tapped into something that's been here in the form of sheep knuckles, and that a goat herd discovered coffee in Ethiopia.
I did not know that.
Well, there you go. So here we are. I appreciate you both, and cue more sound effects. Raccoons painting nails, apes sharpening their guitar strings. No, tuning their
spears.
guitars.
That would be crazy.
Well, they're
Imagine
spears, of course, but
we see monkeys
tuning
playing
their
guitars.
guitars.
Like,
That's
dude.
what I'm ready. And they have a whole different key. They're like, no, you're off key with your key, y'all. So you already know. Love you guys. Thinking about archetypes, as I begin to think about archetypes.
God help me.